What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 59 of the Steam Deck podcast, Flip Screen Games weekly gaming podcast, all about Valve's portable PC powerhouse, the Steam Deck. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined as always by the finest mind in the Steam Deck community. This is Stephen Radford.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Steve. Good to be back.
Yeah, welcome back. You missed a good episode last week with Max, I think. But it was nice to have him back. It's nice to have you back. And hopefully Max will be on regular rotation from
It
now
would
on.
be great to get all three of us back. That would be
Yes,
that's when you're really in
that's the
business.
dream. Yeah.
Yeah. But we got some other things to dream about this week, namely a revision to the Steam Deck. Maybe
Yeah.
is dancing around in the dreams of some of the listeners here tonight. And you're either gonna, you're either gonna feed into their wildest fantasy, Steve, or you're gonna dash their hopes. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure where we're landing. I'm excited to go on this journey with them.
Well, we spoke, me and Max spoke last week about a Steam Deck 2 and Pierre Lou's comments over at Valve. He did an interview with CNBC saying that a Steam Deck 2 is probably not until 2025 or 2026. They're looking for like a leap in performance that he doesn't think is going to be available from AMD's chipsets until that point.
Which echoes things he said in the past, right? Like we
Yeah.
talked about a Steam Deck 2 a long time ago, the first time that he answered about it. And I remember a very, very similar answer, right? Of like, look, there'll be a 2 when we have a leap forward that is worthwhile. We're not looking to do small incremental updates, right?
Yeah, whereas it does seem like we are maybe getting some kind of revision. So Brad Lynch, sadly it's Bradley over on X, found some FTC listings for a revision that seems, or at least pointing to a revision of the Steam Deck. And it looks like it's related to a new Wi-Fi and Bluetooth module that got granted FCC approval on the 13th of July. And this application is for the integration into a Valve Steam Deck model 1030. The current model of Steam Deck is 1010. So it looks like this is very much going to be a new version of the Steam Deck. And we can see the new sticker, new revision that shows Valve Corporation Model 1030 that was sent through to the FCC for approval. And if you have a look at the FCC ID, if you look up the FCC ID for the chip, you'll find the chip on the manufacturer's website, which is, I think, Quectel Wireless Solutions is the name of the company. And it's a Wi-Fi and Bluetooth module supporting 2.5 gigahertz, 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz, but also this chip adds 6 gigahertz support, which is Wi-Fi 6E, and triple band and Bluetooth low energy, which is Bluetooth 5.2, and a bunch of other things. So at the moment, the Steam Deck does not support Wi-Fi 6, and has, I think it's Bluetooth 5.1 or it might be 5.0. And so this thing is just going to be an upgrade to the chip. At least we know it's going to be an upgrade to the chip because that's probably one of the main things the FTC would want to improve. It's obviously radio waves. They're going to want to make sure that that's not interfering with
Sure.
anything else. And so that's why it needs to go through FCC approval. But the application says that software security remains unchanged from the original application and that the application uses an antenna of the same type but of lower gain. So the way I read this is it's probably a pretty minor revision to the Steam Deck, and it's likely that the chip they were using is either not being manufactured anymore, and this is the new version of the chip, or they can get these chips easier, these Wi-Fi and Bluetooth modules, or maybe they just wanted to add Wi-Fi 6E in. If it's something that's available to them, why not add it into the Steam Deck going forwards? And it's probably just going to be a minor revision. What do you think?
I mean that excuse me. That seems to make the most sense based on what you're presenting here, right? Because like it feels akin to what we've seen, in the console space time and time again, right? Which is like a couple of years into the development of or not even development, I should say, like a couple of years into the life cycle of a device, usually get some kind of revision, right? And whether that's, like what we saw with the Switch, where it got like a new battery, right? Or like with the PlayStation 5, we have seen leaked images of that revision that is in a
Well,
slightly
even prior to that, like the PlayStation 5 had a die shrink that
that's
had like the reduced
and they
power
changed the metal,
consumption.
right?
Yeah, change the metal in there. And the Steam Deck's already had a revision. We know that there's the new revision with the improved,
Right.
like,
True.
black backplate, and it's got a different fan configuration in there. So they have been improving it. And my friend just actually bought a Steam Deck, and there's other minor differences. The buttons feel different. His I don't know what the deal is with the cases at the moment, but his like middle version, the 256 gig version, came with the high end case, the 512 gigabyte case, but it didn't have
Oh.
the pull strap to pull the Steam Deck out. Like, that was missing from the inside. It was
Huh.
very strange. It was like I was like, "What's going on here? This is very weird."
That is weird. So yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, like when you have that context in mind, that like obviously hardware revisions happen, and they're not necessarily coming in hand with a revision to the hardware as like when it comes to performance, right? Like the idea that this is ostensibly the same device with, some improvements to the build quality here and there, maybe some swapping out of parts that are more affordable or upgrades, like in the case of, the Wi Fi and Bluetooth functionality. Those are the kinds of things that I could see, making a quiet revision and moving forward. If you purchase it, you'll have this advantage in the same way that if you bought a Switch late, you got a better battery life, right? And it's like at the end of the day, it's
Mhm.
the same device. It's not, not enough to like warrant, a new name or something like that. But it does mark a quality of life improvement for the folks that are late adopters, right? And you see that all the time in technology. It's not at all surprising, and based on what you've laid out here, I think that feels like the Occam's razor solution, right? It's the simplest answer. So to me, that makes the most sense, especially given the context of Plagman's comments from last week of like we shouldn't expect a hardware revision anytime soon. So I think the idea that this is just kind of a quiet refresh that's taking advantage of, some of the learnings of the last year and change of developing the thing makes sense. Feels like par for the course.
Yeah, and it's bringing up the Wi-Fi up to the current standards. It's making sure that it's future-proofed moving forwards. People wouldn't wanna necessarily might not want to invest in a device that has like an older revision of Wi-Fi, especially if these chips are readily available now. I mean, you obviously have to have a Wi-Fi 6E router, which I think most people don't, and most people don't upgrade their home router from whatever's provided by the ISP, and they're not dishing out Wi-Fi 6 routers at the moment. So it's very much like a future-proof solution. I'm curious though as to whether you think anything else will be coming. We had a question from Chris Trumpeter over on Discord, and they said if Valve offered a quick refresh of the deck with an OLED screen and better Wi-Fi, would it be enough for anyone to buy on it? So I don't think the Wi-Fi for me would be enough, but I think probably a better screen might compel me to
Yeah,
jump on a revision.
I feel like the last time we talked about a revision, like, I think it was when we talked about the upgrade to, like, the 1200p screen, right? And, like, obviously, that had its own challenges of why you might not wanna do it, but, one of the things that we kinda came back to was, like, even if it was a properly supported 1200p screen, I don't know that I would upgrade because battery life is such a problem on this device, right? So, like, for me, an OLED screen is probably one of the few things I would bite on for a non full revision upgrade, just because OLED's technology I really believe in, right? Like OLED screens are really nice, and there's a really small number of use cases where you're not better off having an OLED screen, So like especially, like, I think most people would agree that the Steam Deck screen is probably, like, the worst part about its build, right? Is that, like
I think that or the battery life for me are
yeah.
the two shortcomings on the Steam Deck.
So, like, yeah, for me, if there was, like, a revision where it's like, "Alright, it's the same device, and it's an OLED screen, and even, like, a slight bump in battery power," I'd consider it, you know?
I mean, there's also the possibility that this is a new SKU, like a new entry, and maybe this is them trying to add additional features like Wi-Fi 6, for example, that maybe replaces the 512 gigabyte model, or maybe they add
Sure.
it, or maybe they add in like a 1 terabyte model, and that goes in at the top end to kind of compete a little bit more with the ROG Ally, and we've got the Lenovo Legion Go, because they're kind of hitting that same price point of the 512 gigabyte model, and they are offering things like Wi-Fi 6 in there, or you can get up to 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte on some of
Yeah.
these other models. I think maybe that's a possibility, and maybe they add something like a better battery into that version. It's maybe like a beefed up version of the Steam Deck. But I don't know. I kind of feel like, and that's a possibility because it's a different model number. But I kind of, and I wonder where 1020 went. You know, we went from 1010 to 1030. Where did 1020 go? But I kind of just feel like this is just a minor revision, and maybe we'll just see the specs change on the Steam Deck page one day, and then all of a sudden they're shipping out versions of the Steam Deck with the new module, and no one really noticed other than it's just changed on the page.
We'll notice.
We'll notice, and the internet will notice, and Reddit will notice, but I think for the most part, people don't care, do they? Do you care about what version of Wi-Fi is in there? Maybe you do if you've got, like, a gigabit
Yeah, like, if you
connection
can
at
take
home.
advantage of it, you care,
Yeah.
but, like, to your point, how many people can? Like, it's not a huge number. I think you said earlier, it feels like something more motivated about future proofing, and I think that's probably true, right? That, like, over the next couple years, that'll become the standard, and you're better off being ahead of that curve than behind it.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think this is probably a small, quiet revision that, unless you're the hardest of the hardcore, it really won't apply to most folks. So I wouldn't worry about it.
Do you think that, there's a possibility that we see this sometime soon and they do, like, an announcement? I'm thinking of, like, I think it was the 1 year mark. They did a video, and it was like, or maybe when they sold a certain number of units, they did a video. It was like, "Thank you. Here's everything that's changed on the Steam Deck in the last 6 to 12 months." Maybe we
Yeah,
get a similar thing. I could see this
maybe.
coinciding with, like, the stable launch of 3.5, and it's like 3.5's out. It does X, Y, and Z. It adds in VRR support, adds in HDR support, and also, to accommodate Wi-Fi 6 and stuff, we've added in this new module. I could also see this being needed for. Do you remember we spoke a couple of weeks ago about that box that might be a consoleized PC, but
Yeah,
also could make a Wi-Fi hotspot that a headset can maybe connect to. Maybe something like that requires Wi-Fi 6, and so the headset will work with the new revision of the Steam Deck that has Wi-Fi 6
that's
included,
interesting. I
but
could see
won't
that.
work with the old version.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, if we are talking about, um, like a device that is going to be communicating with your headset and with your Steam Deck, and is going to be, taking advantage of that local connection, right? Like, uh, maybe even if it's not required, it improves performance, right? To have
Maybe you can get better resolution or something, or lower latency.
or like, yeah, or lower latency, or like better distance, right? Like, oh, it works better on the second floor of your house, like just little things like that. And if you are trying to sell people on a product that, the primary argument for it is convenience, then, like, shaving any amount of friction is huge, right? Like, that's a huge win for them. So, I hadn't considered that, but that could be as well, yeah. That makes sense. Man, I hope that this set top box is everything we want it to
It
be.
won't be,
It won't
we've
be,
put it on
right?
such
But,
a
like, man,
pedestal,
wouldn't
it's
that be
like a
so
dream
cool?
device at this point, yeah.
Like, what you're describing sounds so awesome. I would love that to be the case, and hopefully it's one of those things where, you know, like, the good folks at Valve are listening to the show, and they're like, "You know what? Okay."
Honestly, I kind of feel like the next thing we're gonna get is gonna be like a VR-centric thing from them. We just got Steam VR 2.0 release, which we
Yeah.
didn't speak about on the show because it's more of a VR only thing, but Steam VR 2.0 got released. It looks like all things are pointing towards some new VR hardware, and I could see the kind of Wi-Fi 6 module tying into that. If the new headset's got Wi-Fi 6 in, it's got the same module. You could also just be buying these in bulk. The more you buy, the cheaper it is. And you could then chuck them into your Steam Deck, chuck them into the Decade, chuck them into this consoleized PC box thing. you've got them on hand then, and you haven't got to worry about it, and you're getting them from a single source.
So before we move on from the new screen stuff, we had another question. This one comes from the Largo Embargo over on Discord, who wrote in and said, I know you guys previously said you wouldn't go for a Deckard 1200p screen. However, would you go for a screen that's still just 800p but supports VRR? You definitely would, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I don't necessarily care about 1200p. I mean, 1200p is nice, right? But I don't think the performance is there and to be able to drive that resolution for most games. Like some games, sure, and it does scale nicely. Like it's double 800p. It's like a decent screen real estate. But really think VRR would be the route forwards. It would be the For me, it just solves so many problems. You can't quite hit 60, doesn't matter. You're in the 40 to 50 range, doesn't matter. VRR smooths all that out. It feels nice. Um, Problem is there would need to be like a pretty significant hardware revision under the hood. Team Linux 01 over on Discord pointed out that that would be a really cool thing, but they'd need to switch to using embedded DisplayPort rather than the current connection they've got, which is the MIPI
Right.
serial port. So there would need to be some kind of revision there. You couldn't just chuck on a VRR panel onto the same existing hardware. You would need to change the motherboard. You would need to change probably the SteamOS would probably need to accommodate embedded DisplayPort. Things like that would need to be solved before they could
Is
do that. And
that
obviously they could do that if they wanted to.
would that feature be enough for you to buy a new unit, you think?
If that came with improved battery life, like either a bigger battery or they did a
Yeah.
die shrink, I think I could see that. And also, I'd like that panel to be nicer, like improved contrast. It doesn't necessarily need to be OLED for me to buy on a VRR panel, but man, something nicer than what we've got would be great. Just better contrast. Like LCD panels can look really nice. That we just saw the Ionio Kun come out, which is that ridiculously expensive $2,000 handheld that's ginormous that has like 4G and all this stuff included. And one of the like headline features is this ridiculously bright 2000 nit panel with amazing contrast ratio for an LCD panel. Like you don't necessarily need an OLED in there. I think you can get an LCD panel that looks nicer, and if it supports VRR as well, then that's a bonus.
Yeah, I think OLED is like it's one of those things where OLED is generally it's the preferable technology, but like it's not the only option, right? Like there are
No, and if
definitely
that makes it
fantastic
cost
LCD
prohibitive,
screens.
like, I don't want them to be like, "Oh, we put OLED panel in, now we can't hit that 350 price point." Because I think a lot of people do come
Right.
in on that 350, and they're just like, "This is a great entry point into PC gaming," and then they can upgrade the storage later, or they can just shove an SD card in, and they can enjoy the Steam. They can have the same experience as everyone else.
Agreed.
I could see them doing a high-end version, like, it's not the etched glass. Does anyone really care about that? I never did.
No.
You can chuck a matte screen protector on there if you want to anyway. I'd much rather have an OLED panel in there than that etched glass, like, and I'm sure that's way more expensive than just putting a coating over the top of the already existing panel, but I think I'd pay a bit even more of a premium for it. I'd be willing to go a little bit more expensive because you're right, OLED is kind of for me the gold standard when it comes to screen technology.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those things where I feel like if you can get it, you want it, but
Mhm.
I totally understand like there's a reason the Switch didn't have one at launch, right? Like you want to achieve an approachable price point. You want to have a device that, speaks to the person that doesn't care about OLED, which is a lot of people, right? Like a lot of people are more than happy with a nice high quality LCD screen.
Yeah, and
Especially if it's
supposedly the Switch 2 is not gonna have OLED at launch as well, which I think
right.
was a surprise to a lot of people when they heard that rumor.
I think it makes sense though, right? Because it's probably the difference of it being again, if it's as powerful as they say, right? Like, are they able to hit a $300 price point? Definitely not with an OLED screen, right? Like,
No, like the current OLED Switch is what, 329. So
right.
you're probably already looking at 399 for the Switch 2, maybe
Man,
even
that's a
more than that.
chipset that was old in
Yeah.
2017 and it costs that much, right? So imagine with some new tech, like you're probably pushing $400 or $500, and then you know that is not. terrible for like the adult console enthusiasts, but if you are like the family that wants to buy 2 or 3 of these things, like it's $300, you might buy 2. If it's 5, probably not, right? Like,
Mhm.
that's a big difference, and, again, for the millions of kids that are gonna be playing on, like, a Switch, for example, they don't care about OLED, that doesn't make a difference to them. With the Steam Deck, I think it makes a little bit more sense to try to push for having a SKU that supports it just because it is a product that's more aimed at, like, adult enthusiasts, and I think we are more likely to want OLED and care about
And I
that as
think
a
the
feature.
competition's been pushing that as well, like Ioneo,
Yeah,
ROG, Lenovo, they're all coming out with devices with better screens on them, and people are looking over the fence. They're going, "Oh, well, what's going on over there?" And I think at some point, Valve's gonna have to look and be like, "Okay, we do need to do a revision on this screen." And I think maybe, 3 years into the life cycle is probably the time to do it. It'll be coming up to 3 years next year.
agreed. All right, so we've got a couple other bits of Steam Deck news to jump into in just a second here. But before that, let me remind you that this episode of the Steam Deck podcast is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of October. They are, of course, Arnold J. Rimmer, Christopher Valenz, Earth Visitor, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, aka Asobi, Pilkey, Snackago, Ty the Dude, and Wakahula. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. Y'all the reals to the real, and we greatly appreciate your support of this and all of our sister shows. I do want to give a very special shout out to Pilkey because, of course, on this week's episode of the Flip Screen Games podcast, I had forgotten to update the doc and did not give him a shout out as a Patreon producer for the month of October. So I am giving him an extra shout out on every show this week and on the next episode of the Flip Screen Games podcast. So thank you so much for your support over there on Patreon, Pilkey. Thanks for being one of the producers. So, if you guys want to go and show your support, if you want to find our sister shows, if you want to get involved between episodes and keep the conversation rolling, you can find links to all that and much more over on flipscreen.games. That's our website. Go over there, click on some stuff. It helps us out a lot and doesn't cost you anything unless you want to go above and beyond to show your support on Patreon. However, you choose to get involved. Thanks for tuning in. All right. So, we have it's October, Steve. It's another month,
Mhm.
right? So that means it is time for the top 20 games played on Steam Deck in the month of September ranked. Have you looked at the list?
I have looked at the list, yes. Have you looked at the list?
I have not looked at the list yet.
Okay, okay, don't look then. I want you to guess the top 5,
Top
if
5.
you
Okay.
can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have to get them in the right order or can I just try
I
to
think the right order. I think you have to get them in the right
All right,
order.
how about
Number
this?
1.
How about this? I get a point if I get a game right, double if it's right order.
Okay, yeah. What do you think? Okay, okay.
So,
Do you
like,
wanna
so that
guess
means
the
a
do you wanna
maximum score is 10, right?
Okay, so let's do the games you think are in the top 5 then, and then order
And then
them.
I'll order them. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna guess Baldur's Gate 3. I'm gonna
Yep, that's in
guess.
there.
Okay. I'm gonna guess Starfield,
Yep, that's that.
Empire Survivors.
No, not in the top 5.
Bumped from the top 5. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
not
All
there.
right. Okay.
How are we doing this then? Like, how many chances are you getting to get the top 5 correct?
I say I just guess 5 games, so I get two
Okay,
more
so
guesses.
you got 2 more guesses, okay. Think
Um.
about what was, released in September.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Can Can I ask some clarifying questions? Like, can
Okay.
I phone a friend here?
Go ahead.
Okay. Did Mortal Kombat come out on PC?
Hold on, I will find out for
Can you
you.
confirm for me if it's on
Yeah,
Steam?
I will find out. I believe so. Yeah, it's on Steam. It's on there.
The fact that you had to look it up makes me
Mm.
think it's not in the top 20 though, so I'm not gonna guess it. Unless you're faking me out, but I think that is a clue, so I'm gonna take that information. Okay, I'm struggling to think of what else came out recently that I
Oh,
is
come
like
on, there is a big one. There is a big one. There's 2 big ones that
that
came
I'm not
out.
thinking of that just
Yeah,
came
that you're
out?
not thinking out, yeah. One just came out,
Okay.
one something sort of just came out.
Are they AAA or is it
Yeah, yeah,
indies?
the other 3 are AAA, yeah.
Okay.
One of them's like an older game, so if you don't get it, that's fine, you
Red Dead
know.
Redemption 2.
No, that's not in the top
Fuck!
5.
Okay. Um,
So you got what, 1 guess left?
yeah. I was doing so good. My first 2, I was right there. I'm really struggling. Oh. Lies of P.
No.
Fuck!
Do you
Okay.
wanna know I'll give you the other 3 and then you can see if we can get the order.
Okay.
So we've got Elden Ring,
Oh, that's what I should have said instead of Red Dead. God damn it.
yeah. Armored Core 6, that
Oh,
just came out, right?
shoot. I forgot about that.
And
Okay.
Cyberpunk 2077 just had its big DLC and its update, yeah.
Damn. I just like those should have come and they just did not, you know? Like we just talked about Cyberpunk. Oh, that's silly. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. So I got 2 points at least. All right. So for order, I'm going to say okay. I'm going to say Baldur's Gate is number 1.
It is, number 1 is Baldur's Gate.
Okay, so that's 3 points then.
Mhm.
And Starfield, I don't think is going to be number 2. I'm imagining Cyberpunk and Armored Core maybe ahead of it
Well, I
because they're
need I need
newer.
orders. I need to know what you think the number 2 is, yeah.
Oh, so am I guessing the order of all 5 that I know now?
Yeah, yeah, guess
Okay,
the order
okay.
of all 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2, Cyberpunk.
No.
Number 2, Armored Core.
No.
Fuck. Okay. Is it Starfield?
Starfield is number
Damn it!
2. So you got one more guess. What do you think number 3 is?
Cyberpunk.
Yeah. So
Okay.
the Baldur's Gate, Starfield, Cyberpunk, and then what do you think 4 is? You won't get points for this, but you know,
Just for the
for honors, what do you
yeah.
think 4 and 5 are? Which order do you think they are?
It's Armored Core and then the 5th game is Elden Ring?
Or the 4th game's entering,
But
or the
I
5th game. It could be,
but
yeah.
but those
Yeah,
are the
yeah,
2 games left.
those are the 2 games left, yeah.
I'm gonna say it's Armored Core Elden Ring.
No, other way around. It's Elden Ring,
Wow.
then Armored Core, yeah. No one, obviously not enough people cared about Armored Core. Baldur's Gate and Starfield's out, and there's a big Cyberpunk update, so,
Yeah. Fair enough.
sod the mechs.
I know it's popping off though. People seem to like it.
It's yeah, and then there's, like, the old favorites in the list as well. We got Stardew Valley in there, No Man's Sky, Vampire Survivors, Red Dead 2, GTA 5. But there's also Sea of Stars. I really wanna try that game. Like,
God,
I
I
really,
really wanna
really
try
wanna
that
check
game.
it out. It looks so good. It's just been the time to find it. And then just, like, other games that are always in here: Fallout, Skyrim, Hades, The Witcher. So,
Yeah. The back
I
half
was
is a
surprised.
lot of what you'd expect.
I was really surprised because we had a question a couple of weeks ago from Slim Timmy 13 who said, "Who's played Starfield on deck yet?" Apparently, a lot of people played Starfield on deck. They're the second most
Apparently
popular
a
game
lot.
on on Steam Deck, and it seems to run really well from what I've heard on SteamOS 3.5. So if you tried it and it didn't work for very well, try checking out the preview channel. Download
Yeah. I
SteamOS
think
3.5.
I'm gonna try to get it set up for Sarah because she was trying to play it on her laptop and it wasn't really panning out and it didn't run on Steam Deck well at the time. So maybe now's a good time to give it another go.
Yes, I think it's probably worthwhile. Um, if not, streaming it. I had a really good, easy time
Yeah.
streaming it.
Yeah. I'm like keeping an eye out for a sale on like a Series S or a second X so that we can
Mhm.
get another one set up. Uh, so speaking of games coming to Steam Deck that could potentially break into this list, Diablo 4 got the
Oh, it's
announcement
what
that it's coming to
yeah.
Steam,
I know.
right?
I was so annoyed because, like, I really wish they'd have just done this at launch. Like, come on, what are you doing, Activision? Like, put your games on Steam. I know we just got Overwatch
No, they want you
2.
to go to Battle.net.
Oh god, I can't wait till that's gone. Yeah, this is due on October 17th, coming to Steam. Runs so well on Steam Deck. It's going to be so much easier just being able to download it from Steam. I really wish I could just trade my copy in. Like, I don't want the Battle.net bullshit anymore. Can you just let me swap it for a copy on Steam? But I know it won't work like that. So and I'm not double dipping. There's no chance. But if you
Never?
I'm not double dip well, maybe when if this gets down to, like, a
Yeah, get it
tenner, but
on sale.
I'm not double dipping now when it's, like, 60 quid. Are you joking? No, thanks.
No, I'm
I'll
with you
pass on
there, but I
that.
mean, you wait for a sale.
Yeah, the problem is I don't know I guess I guess it's cross progression because it is if I played it on Xbox, yeah, so, I would guess that I can just carry over my characters from
Theoretically, if they won't let you move it, you could move your save to Xbox and then move it to Steam.
Christ, what a nightmare that but then I'd have to buy a copy on Xbox. However, this is coming October 17th, one day before the Microsoft deal is due to
It'll come
close.
to Game Pass
It's
then.
gonna come to Game Pass the week after,
So
right?
you move
Like,
it to Game Pass, and then you
it's
move your save to
if it's
Steam.
coming to Game Pass, I'll just download, if I was really bothered, I'd just download it on PC through Game Pass. So, like, I don't know, this should have come at launch on Steam. Like, it was a real faux pas just to keep pushing people towards your crappy launcher all the time. Don't get it. I kinda get
Money.
it
What do you
for
mean you
stuff
don't
like
get
World of
it? It's
Warcraft, but,
business.
like, ugh.
They don't wanna give a percentage. They're like, "No, you come pay us."
Charge more on Steam if that's the problem. I think people would pay a $10 premium not to have to use Battle.net. I know I would've. If I could
Yeah,
get it
I
on Steam.
feel like, maybe. I don't know. Sony gets away with it, right? So,
Yeah,
only
I
they're
know.
doing the opposite, which makes no
Which
sense,
is
but
just bizarre, makes no
I
sense
s
whatsoever.
I don't understand them. They're making weird moves over there.
Hey, well, maybe that's gonna come to an end, Jim Ryan's out, go listen to Flip Screen Games podcast.
Yeah, go check that one out. So long, Jim Ryan. So you've added something to this show docket that we have not done in a really long time, Steven.
No, I
What
know
are you
it's been a
playing this
very
week?
long time. So, I've been playing a bunch of games. I've been playing Cocoon, and I highly recommend that, and I'm gonna talk about that next week, which is the new game from, one of the directors of Inside and, Limbo, called Puzzle Game. But on Steam Deck, I've been playing an absolute ton of Deceive Inc. And it's this really cool multiplayer game. I got a copy through Humble Bundle this month.
Real quick, is that a pun? Like, is it like when it's red? Do they say deceive pause ink, or is
But
it
I've never heard it
deceive
read,
ink?
but I think it's Deceive Inc., but I've never heard it read out loud. But it's really good, really good. So you basically are a spy. You're trying to steal some stuff from a vault, and you are on team. You can either do solo, duo, or like a squad of I think it's 3 or 4. And you can become any person that you see and any object that you see. And I'll talk a bit more about it next week on the Flip Screen Games podcast in terms of gameplay. So if you're interested, go listen to that. But I wanted to talk specifically about how it performs on the Steam Deck and specifically on the how it performs XESS. So I don't know if you know what XESS is, Pete.
I don't know the name. No.
So this is Intel's version of DLSS, XE
Okay.
supersampling. And so it uses like AI to upscale similar to FSR and DLSS. But my God, this looks so much better than FSR in this game. So this game supports FSR, DLSS, and XESS. It's the first game I've tried that supports XESS. And I highly recommend if you play a game on Steam Deck that supports FSR and XESS, give XESS a go. It runs so well and it looks so good. I was getting like a solid 60 frames per second out of this at 800p on
Wow.
high texture settings with XESS set to quality mode. Um, it's absolutely flawless. I've had no issues with it, and it looks so good, so good. So, I just wanted to give a heads up. I was very surprised of
Does it
the
make you a believer in that tech?
it really does, yeah, and the fact that Intel's doing the same thing as AMD and just allowing it to run on any chip manufacturer's cards rather than NVIDIA, which is making it exclusive to NVIDIA's cards, is really nice. It means you can take advantage of it on the Steam Deck, which is good. And I think if the options there between FSR2 and XESS, I'm going to go with XESS moving forwards. I do want to try out an FSR3 game. I know Cyberpunk's big update came out this week, and it's the first game to have like FSR3, one of the first games to have FSR3 and DLSS 3.5. That game's really kind of on the bleeding edge all the time. Um, but I was very impressed. It feels like, Intel kinda came out of nowhere with manufacturing their own GPUs, and now we've got XeSS with their version of DLSS. Like, it's nice to see competition and it heating up in that space, and it's not all in NVIDIA's court, because I kind of feel like they've really been away with it somewhat.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I mean, obviously, like lately, it's been all we can talk about, right? With all the Switch rumors and everything. So definitely cool to see some of the other folks in the space offering up something that's a viable alternative and just seeing more games be able to take advantage of this technology. It's exciting to think that we can maybe enter an era where we can have these higher quality, higher fidelity experiences that don't cost more, don't take more power. That's
Yeah,
so interesting.
I'd really love to see this come to something like a Starfield along with FSR3 support, because I know they're adding in DLSS. It'd be great to have XeSS and FSR3 in there as
Sure.
well, because I think that's drastically going to improve the image quality. FSR, you kind of get this weird shimmer in the background, especially with like light sources. Didn't notice any of that with XeSS. There was a couple of points where I noticed this like onion skinning effect where someone would walk past and you could see like it was still kind of rendering the frame before and as it was fading out, and the AI hadn't quite AI had probably never seen this specific use case before, so it didn't know what to do in that scenario. But other than that, it looked really good. Like there's no way you could tell that this wasn't running at native resolution.
That's really impressive.
And I've even tried this docked on my TV, 1080p. I was getting around 40 frames per second, so I locked it at
Yeah.
30. But even then, like I was impressed that the Steam Deck's able to output 1080p, really good looking resolution and quality of textures
Yeah,
for
that's
my
no
display at
joke.
that frame rate. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a good jumping off point for a question from the Steam docket, unless you've got anything else you wanna say about Deceive
No,
Inc.
no.
All right, then I'm gonna pull this question. This one comes from Team Linux 01, who wrote in and said, "Could you go only gaming on deck for an extended amount of time if docking worked 100% for you?"
Yeah, I think I could. It would depend what game I was playing. Like, I would struggle if it was like there's a game coming out on PlayStation, it's not coming to Steam
Right.
Deck, or there's an Xbox game that I really wanna play, or a Switch game that I really wanna play, and I can't play it on my Steam Deck, and everyone else is playing it, and I've got the FOMO, and I'm like, "Oh, I really wish I could play that." I'd be, upset then, but I was playing pretty much Steam Deck only for a good while when I was playing Diablo 4, when I was playing Baldur's Gate 3, like, those games I was playing on deck, and I docked them, occasionally. But it really does highlight the issue that we've spoken so many times on this show about, is that the docked experience is so crummy and really needs a lot of work and a lot of TLC. And I hope SteamOS 3.6, when that inevitably hits, has some improvements in there for the docked experience, because I do feel that that needs a lot of work.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. If the docked experience was better and if I could get a guaranteed quality experience docked and it was even approaching 1080 60, right? Like and giving me a a baseline standard of quality that I was happy with. Yeah, I think there's a ton of games that I would play on Steam Deck primarily, right? Or like third party titles that maybe I pick up on Xbox that I would rather get on Steam Deck if the performance was there. But if it's not, then I'm not gonna go that route because ultimately, like, the docked experience is not just subpar, it's inconvenient. There's a lot of, fiddling required to have a layout for when I'm in handheld and having a layout when I or a loadout when I'm docked, and to go through extra steps to have a worse looking version of a game that I could get for the same price on a console and it'll just work is like that's a decision I'm never gonna make, right?
Yeah.
So, for
It's
sure.
whether you wanna play that game in handheld, and I gotta say, Deceive Inc. does a really good job of this. Like, I set in the menu, I wanted the resolution to be 1080p when it was docked, and if I boot the game when it's in handheld mode, it will only max out at the screen resolution of 800p, which is really nice. It fills the
That's
screen, it
incredible.
knows 800p, and then
Make
when
that the
I
standard.
when I have to quit it, and when I dock it, but then when I boot it when it's docked, it knows that I wanna run it in 1080p, and the game like understands that. And I really hope other developers can kind of follow suit with that. I'm okay restarting the game if I
Yeah,
go
that's
from
fine.
handheld to docked, but I'd love it to like load in the settings, load in the resolution that I want to run it at. And with XeSS, it meant I didn't have to worry about changing the textures or any of that stuff going from handheld to docked. It just worked, which was really nice. So I could do something like that. But I don't want to restrict myself. I couldn't do like some kind of challenge where it's like I'm only playing on Steam Deck or anything like that. I have been playing as well. I downloaded a bunch of Wii U games, so I've been trying out the new Proton version of CMU, the Wii U emulator that came out a few months ago. I was using the Windows version from when I installed EmuDeck, like originally. So it's had drastic performance updates since then. I've been playing
Make a video.
A bunch of Wind Waker HD, which has been really nice. Um, I forgot that that game only runs at 30 frames per second, though. I kind of feel like the best way to play that game is we're on Dolphin with the 60 FPS mod and HD texture pack. I think it
Yeah,
looks similar to the Wii U version, but you can run it at a higher frame rate,
yeah, totally.
which is weird. Very weird. I kind of expected the newer version, the like official sanctioned HD version of that game to run at 60 FPS. I don't know why.
I'll have to come up with a 60 FPS mod for Semu, and then
Yeah.
then then we'll be in
Yeah.
business. So let's pull another question. This one comes from Chris Gabe One, who said, "Can you watch YouTube or any type of show on Steam Deck through desktop mode?" Yeah, you can.
Have you tried I remember we did the docked video, right? And the dock review.
In the review, I pull up Netflix.
And
I
you
think.
and yeah, I was gonna say you tried Netflix, right? Because that was the one thing I wasn't sure on as to whether it supports the Widevine DRM, that Netflix and Amazon uses. But I guess it does if you use Chrome or,
I'm
Firefox.
pretty sure that I opened up Netflix specifically. It may have been Disney Plus or something like that, but
They all
yeah,
use the same
if you
shit,
open it
so
in Chrome, it works. No problem.
awesome, yeah. And you can also add, like, a browser to gaming mode as well, so if you don't want to constantly switch back and forth between desktop mode and gaming mode, you can add a browser. So you can add like Chrome
Yeah,
to your
there's a
gaming
Chrome
mode.
app that you can
Yeah.
launch through game mode, and it
And then if you
works
have it
perfectly.
bookmarked, you just tap on the one you want and it'll boot up. So
Yep. So yeah, super easy. And like with the docked experience, it works pretty well. Like that's if you're like on the go or something like that, and you're not planning on bringing a streaming device or something like that, the docked Steam Deck is a totally viable way to watch multimedia.
isn't that insane that that's something that everyone seems to do these days is bring one of those little sticks with them to a hotel? And I'm just like,
Yeah,
why has the hotel not got a mode where I can just like connect my
dude,
phone to the
I
TV? Like, I just don't get it.
I don't get it at all. And some do. Some will have a smart TV and just let you log into Netflix or whatever, and then they log you out when your time is over, and it's like that's just how it should be, but super weird. Um, there's like a quick aside, but I was like going on a rant about this because I went to Disney World recently with my wife and a couple of friends, and they don't have Disney Plus on any of the TVs in any of the
In
hotels.
Disney?
Yeah, and I'm like, "What the fuck? Like, why like, you have a streaming service, why don't you let me log into it and watch your goddamn movies?" It's ridiculous.
That should be like a freebie that you get for being in the
Right?
hotel.
It
Like
should just be there
watch
and be
Star
on.
Wars, like just turn it on, yeah.
Let people get a
Jesus.
hit, right? And then they're like, "Oh yeah, it's great. They got The Simpsons on here. Let me download this when I get home." Crazy to
Have
me.
they added like Simpsons or anything to any of the parks? Like or any of the other Fox like
No, no,
entities?
they've got Universal's got one, so I think there's like you know, probably like
It's
20
gotta
years
end
from
at
now they'll
some
make one.
point, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they'll do it
yeah,
at
yeah.
some point, I'm sure.
You can dress up as Homer, yeah.
They'll sell you his donut in the park or something.
Oh, yeah, that'd be so cool. They should have like like Krusty whatever it is, Krusty
Krusty
Burger. They
Burger.
should have that there, yeah. They
They've
should have
got
one
one
of
in
them there.
Universal, I think.
Or a Quickie
Um,
Mart. Like, that'd be great.
so there's and this is the last non Steam Deck thing I'll say. We've got a local donut shop in Philly that I like a lot. They're actually opening their 4th location because 'cause they're that good. And it's this place called Dottie's, and they do a lot of, like, funky, like, crazy flavors and stuff, you know? And, their strawberry sprinkled donut is just called the Homer, and it's not a standard
Yeah,
one. They rotate it in every once in a while, but it's like
that's
they
so
really
good.
nailed the look of it. It's like, all right, you know what? Buy this. I buy this. All right, Steve. So here's the thing. We've got it's not so much a question, but it's a letter, and we're gonna end it here for the day because I think it's an interesting one. We'll close it out
Mhm.
on this letter from Costa. So Costa wrote in to the email address questions at flipscreen.games, just like you can, and said, "Hello there. Listening to your latest podcast from the Steam Deck podcast this morning from Australia, and you had a listener say that they listen but don't own a Switch. I think what they meant to say there is that they don't own a Steam Deck, because then the rest of it is talking about not owning a Steam Deck.
I think it may have actually been a question, talking about mods and playing, like, games with mods or something that we had last week,
Okay, okay.
but I'm not sure. But
So
yeah, it's
I'm
either
with
they
you.
don't own a Switch, but they listen, or they don't own a Steam Deck and listen to the podcast. I think Max mentioned something about it.
Got it. Okay, I'm with you. I'm with you now.
Yeah.
All right,
I
I'm
think it
with you.
was someone that listened to Nintendo noise but didn't own a Switch, and then they ended up getting a Switch further down
Got
the
it.
line.
Okay, there we go. Now we know. So, Ghost said, I also fall in that bucket. Unfortunately, Valve does not sell in Australia. There are some options to buy via third party, but there are some issues slash risks in doing that. It's quite disappointing that after all this time in the Steam Deck being available, there's no way for us Aussies and many others in the world to secure this device. I know there are many of us in other parts of the world that would like to buy one, but can't. Not sure what the situation was for you guys. As for why I listen to the podcast, it's interesting, informative, and as they say, dare to dream. Hope I'll have a Steam Deck one day soon. All the best and keep up the great work, Costa. Well, first of all, thank you for writing in, Costa or Costa. You let me know how to say it, and I'll get it right next time. But thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate that you listen to the show, even though you don't have a Steam Deck, and that we can hopefully at least, give you a taste, right? And like help you tide over until you're able to get your hands on one. As far as the situation that we ended up in, I live in the United States, so I'm very blessed in that regard that they sell every product to us here for sure, right? So like I was one of the we both live in countries that were part of the first wave, right? You're in the UK, so we were both able to get one early on. But for what it's worth, I got mine through kind of a secondary channel, right? Like Mango from the community, who's a moderator, member of the Discord, been around for as long as we've been around. Um, he had a pre-order and was able to hook me up with it, and I cut the line and got one through him. So I mean, like you said, getting one secondhand and everything, your mileage may vary, but I mean, we got a very supportive community here. So if you want to link up with somebody who can mail you one, I feel like somebody will help you out. I think we can figure that out, cuz we can get you a Steam Deck if you want a Steam Deck. We can figure this out together. So you DM us and we'll hook you up.
I can understand having reservations though, there are always issues with gray market stuff like
Yeah.
warranties, what happens if there's a problem. But
You
I think
can't
if you
send it
know
to get
someone in
fixed if
another
it does break, right?
Yeah, but if you know someone in another country and, like, they buy it on your behalf, if you have any problems, you can always ship it to them and they can, like, ship it to Valve or they
True.
can give you the label to ship it to Valve. But I've had a few people talk about this. Do you know the, YouTube channel Skill Up?
Yeah.
He's, like, sometimes on Alana Pierce's, stuff. He's in Australia. Valve ended up sending him one because he couldn't get a hold of one. Um Taki Udon is in China. They didn't sell them there for a long time. I don't think they still do. I
They sell
think
them
it's
in Taiwan, don't they?
yeah, but not in
Which is
China.
right, which is it there's it's literally in China, but it's like an independent.
Yeah. So he ended up getting one like gray market, going down to like some shady. I mean, he spoke about it in an episode when he finally got a Steam Deck, and it was like went down to a shady street corner, and I met this guy, and I exchanged some money, and I finally got my Steam Deck, and
I'm just
then Valve
imagining
ended up sending him one as well.
I'm imagining, I forget the original movie, but it's, like, been lampooned again and again, but it's, like, the guy in the, like, long raincoat, and he opens it up, and it's, like, filled with
Mhm.
watches, It's just a guy's got Steam Deck. You wanna buy a Steam Deck?
I bet there's tons of them, right? And the thing with China I thought was so funny, they make the things there, so they have made them there, shipped them to another country, someone else has bought them in that other country, shipped them back to China, and is now selling them to someone. And it makes zero
So
sense
silly.
whatsoever that that's the route you have to go down in order to buy one of these. I
Hmm.
I've gotta think that Australia's gotta be one of the next distribution options on the list. They're an English speaking country. Same with
Yeah,
China. China's gotta be up there as well because did you see simplified Chinese is about to overtake
yeah,
English as the most popular language on Steam? It's like 52% to 53% or
that's
43% to
insane.
42% or something like that. So, yeah, it's gonna overtake at some point.
That's nuts. That's really nuts. I mean, it makes sense, right? Like, there's billions of, folks in China that are, like, getting access to these new marketplaces, right? Like, for so long, China's been this,
Mhm,
like, it's been like when it comes to games, right? Totally isolated, right? And like there was rules right up until the last generation of like not importing certain kinds of hardware and certain kind of software, and like it was just such a limited amount of options, and like having the Steam marketplace like come online there is like, oh my god, right? Like I can imagine what that must be like as a gamer there who's, you know, been like, and I don't even know. I don't even like who even knows like how much outside of like the Chinese games market you're even aware of, because I know that like, the internet is very like limited there, right? And it's censored in ways that it's not in other parts of the world. So it's like it's gotta be such a huge floodgate moment of like, "Oh my god, look at all this content," right? Like, games that
mhm.
are classics from 2030, it's, like, all brand new, right? And it's like, that's gotta be so exciting, for those people, like, I can totally imagine that. Just an influx of players who are, like, out there devouring stuff like Portal and, like, all this other stuff that, you've been looking over the fence longingly at.
So you gotta think that Valve's gonna target mainland China at some point. They probably already
Yeah.
wanna be there.
Yeah, are you
And,
kidding me? I bet you the Steam Deck will sell like fucking hotcakes.
yeah. And I can imagine that Australia or the oceanic regions like New Zealand, I would imagine that they're probably on the list as well. Same with like South
You would
Africa and
think,
stuff.
yeah. I wonder. I don't know. I know that Australia at least has some more strict rules about games, and in terms of
Can't you
like,
just say this is a PC though? Like this is a PC, yeah. Like the Steam's already
yeah,
available there, but the Steam Deck is just a PC. Like you can install
yeah.
Steam on your PC.
I guess my point in bringing that up is more. You got to imagine that there's some like stupid roadblock that's made it, inconvenient to launch there up to now, and, like, that's why it's been on the back burner. Because otherwise, I can't imagine why you wouldn't, right? Like you said, it's an English-speaking country. It's not like you need to translate to a new language or, like, anything like that. So it's like, and it's like, obviously, there's a big market of gamers in that region. So, it's like, what's the holdup, right? Like, why can't Costa get their hands on a Steam Deck? There must be a
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah, there's gotta be. I mean, it could just be that it's difficult to go through regulatory approval or something, or maybe more expensive, and they're targeting specific regions that they've probably looked at that are the most popular regions on Steam, and they're like,
Yeah,
"We're gonna target all of these," and
or
Australia
or
might be
that
further
have
down the list.
or that have the biggest opportunity to be an emerging market, like you pointed out with China, right? Where it's like the
Yeah.
idea of like, we talked about them like selling in Japan and Korea and Taiwan. And it's like, we know that in Japan at least, right? That like there's a huge level of enthusiasm around handheld gaming. So the idea that like you'd want to prioritize releasing the Steam Deck there is like, yeah, of course you would, right? Like totally makes sense.
Well, I just had a quick look to see the history of Valve selling hardware there, right? Because they've got the Index, and I wanted to see if
Right.
the Index was on sale in Australia, and it is. Turns out you can buy it. It didn't come to Australia until 2 years after the original release, and
Uh-oh.
it's only available at EB Games. That's the exclusive Australian retailer. That's the only
So it
place you can
sounds
buy.
like a
and
year from
index.
now, you can get a Steam Deck maybe at EB Games is what we
Yeah,
gotta hold
yeah,
out
that
hope
would be
for.
my guess, yeah, that they go down the EB Games route again in
Yeah.
terms of their distribution
And
channel.
I mean, I guess that makes sense too, right? Because when you think about, their sales in Asia, they're partnered with, 2 different
Komodo.
Komodo is in Japan, and there's another one in Korea, I think, right? That they partnered with?
I believe Komodo does all of, Asia,
Okay,
and they're
okay.
doing the Steam Deck across most of across all the
Oh, you know what
regions
it
that
is?
Valve moved into.
Komodo's the online, and then I'm thinking of there's that physical brick and mortar
Oh, you can get it at
retailer.
the Acer stores, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's what I must have been thinking of. Yeah, yeah. So even right in those regions, they have distribution partners, so I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case in Australia as well. Maybe that's part of the problem, right? It's like lining up, not getting regulatory approval, lining up a distribution partner, then, creating a pipeline for getting them shipped there, right? And shipping to Australia and the oceanic area in general is more difficult than pretty much any other part of the world because it's such a long flight, right? So, like, there could be challenges there that they're maybe just still working through and get to your point, right? That they're like, okay, that's a major region, but it's not as big as Asia. So,
Or the whole of Europe, right? Because like,
right,
you get into Europe, you're then able to distribute across all of Europe in one fell swoop rather than Australia's, its own independent island.
right. Yeah. Good
Does
point.
it does E EB Games still exist for you or Electronics Boutique? Like, they went
No.
years ago in the UK,
Yeah.
they're gone.
GameStop acquired them, and I think it's like in certain other countries they still operate as EB Games, but to my knowledge, they're owned by GameStop in every country.
Apparently in Australia, it's like, yeah, yeah, it's owned by GameStop, but they are, like an independent entity.
They
Um,
were for a long time here. Like, I remember when I, was a teenager, right? Mall in the town where I grew up, there was always 2 game stores for as long as they had, a GameStop, and then they had a Babbage's, which was an imprint of EB Games. And then eventually Babbage's became an EB Games, and then it eventually became a second GameStop, and they had 2 GameStops in the same mall forever. I think they only have 1 now, but still, it was insane. They had 2. That's it goes to show how much physical game sales used to be a huge business, that they could have 2 identical stores in the same mall.
yeah, yeah, we had Game and Game Station. We also had Electronics Boutique. Electronics Boutique, I think got bought by Game, and then Game ended up buying Game Station as well, but then you'd have 2 game stores in the same like,
Yep.
they're the same company. It's like having 2 Game Stops in the same shopping center,
Yeah, oh my god, dude,
and
like,
it was
literally
bizarre.
up until 2020 and lockdown, there were 2 GameStops in 1 shopping center. Technically, it was 2 shopping centers, but they were 2 shopping centers that were connected by a parking lot. So, like, I'm at one, I'm 50 feet from the second one. I can't see it from where I'm standing, but I could probably throw a rock over the building between them, like,
If one of them's not got what you want in stock, you can pop over to the other one.
literally, I would do that. And it's like, I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it seems insane.
Man, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Yeah, I hope, Costa, that you get your Steam Deck at some point, and like Pete said, come join the Discord. I'm sure someone will hook you up if you really wanted one.
We can make this happen. We can make this happen if we want to. Be a great video, all I'm saying. Good
Yeah.
human interest story. All right, gang. We're gonna wrap it up there for today. Thank you for tuning into another episode of the Steam Deck Podcast. Thank you to everybody who wrote in for the Steam Docket. For Shidifu, Left Eye Lazy, and Chewy, I still got your questions. All right, we're gonna hit them next week if we can. All right, we got a ton. Write in for some more stuff with the Steam Docket if you haven't already. I'd love to hear your thoughts about a Steam Deck revision. Are you interested in a minor revision, or are you happy to hold it out for that Steam Deck 2 that might not be for a couple years? And what games on the top games from September did you play? Are you playing Starfield on deck? Let me know how good it is because I think it might be time to boot it up over there again. So I would love to hear from you. Make sure you hit us up, questions at flipscreen.games. Come join the Discord. Keep the conversation rolling between episodes. If you want to find links to all that and much, much more, head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you will find links to all the places, all the way, all all the places that we are all over the web. That's what I was going to say. And however you choose to get involved helps us out a ton. Thank you for going over there and clicking on some stuff. Thank you for joining us here on another episode of the Steam Deck Podcast. For the crew, I've been Pete. He's been Steve. We'll see you next week.